Hello, everyone. I think we are live. Okay, great. So, welcome everyone for the big call. Pathfinders and IPI are really excited to host this big call. My name is Jimena Leiva Roche. I work for IPI, and I'm joined by David Steven from Pathfinders, as well as the speakers who are joining me. Nick Astaire from the SDG16 Plus Forum, Fred from DESA, Lucy Turner will come in, and John Romano from TAP, and Jordan Treat from Safer World are here as speakers. We know that we have over 100 people joining us online, so thank you for making the time this morning or this afternoon or evening. The overall purpose of this call was to offer updates and an opportunity for everyone to come together ahead of the Rome meeting as well as the HLPF. I think that all of us share the goal that we want to have a successful Rome meeting and then a very successful HLPF where we can seize the opportunities and the greater ambition to achieve more momentum, including political momentum towards SDG 16 plus. So with that in mind, we want to provide this space to come together as a community and to discuss how we can make that happen. We have a wonderful lineup of speakers that will help provide a framework, and then we will have a Q&A in which we will be able to hear from you. If you're using a laptop or a computer, you'll be able to say that using your voice, but if you're using a smartphone, then you can provide your questions or comments via the chat box. This call is being recorded, so please know that whatever you say can be used and will be repackaged, so other people that were not able to join us this morning will have this information as well. And then, as I told my fellow speakers, when their time is up, I'll be showing this little toy here to mark the time, and this will just help us keep up with time so that we flow with the hour that we have together. So with that, David, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Jimena, and greetings to everybody on this call. We see the numbers are climbing rapidly, and I think it indicates how much interest there is in SDG 16 plus and in the events that we have coming up this year. Jimena, if you were able to see that, has her prop. I also have a prop to show you who can see the screen. This is the clock that we have up on our wall here in the offices of the Pathfinders for Peaceful Inclusive Societies, and this is the countdown to the high-level political forum. 88 days away. Time is moving fast, and we have 166 days until the SDG Summit in September. And this is just a massive year for us as a community. In Pathfinders, everything that we've been doing has been working towards this year for 3 to 4 years, 4 years now. It's the end of the first 4-year cycle of the SDGs. It's the SDG Summit, which is like the Olympics of the SDGs. It sets the cycle for the next 4 years to 2023. And we also, as we all know, have SDG 16 on the up for review at the HLPF in July. Now, there's been quite a lot of discussions. We had a retreat almost a year ago now to begin the preparations for the event. And I think we all know that this is a politically difficult time for many of the issues around peace, justice, and inclusion. There's going to be quite a tough negotiation around the political declaration. There may be some issues around the chair's summary for July. But we have a lot to show. We have a lot to stand up for. Behind me, you can see the sign, Stand Up for SDG 16 Plus. And there is a lot of progress. We see some really exciting things happening on violence prevention. We see a lot happening on inclusion. There's a huge piece of work going on around justice, and the justice partners are really coming together. And there's a lot of work on governance as well. So I think one of the things we need to do this year is celebrate success. But we also have to look to the future. The text for September asks leaders to come and mobilize further actions to accelerate implementation. So we need to keep that focus on actions and on solutions. We need to demonstrate an acceleration in ambition, that we're stepping up progress from we've done a certain amount in the first 4 years, but we're going to step up in the next 4 years. And we need this mobilization. This is the reason why we're trying to pull as many partners from around the world together so that we can begin to align our messages, we can begin to align our strategies and plans, and we can really speak not with one voice, but with a harmonious multitude of voices in July and September, and maximize our opportunity. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. I like the idea of the harmonious multitude of voices. I think that's quite poetic. So yeah, I think that's really good, that even though each of us are working on different aspects of the goal, I think we all are in for the same kind of bigger goal, which is having a successful HLPF, where SDG 16 plus is recognized as an important goal. So now we have Fred from DESA. Fred will provide us with information on the Rome meeting, as well as the HLPF and the SDG Summit. We're so glad that you have joined us. Thank you so much for making the time. You have the floor.
Thank you, Jimena, and thank you, David, for that introduction. And I think, David, some scary but also inspiring phrases in Olympics, but also the timeline, 88 days and so on, is very short to get a lot of work done. But yes, very pleased to join you here from DESA. My name is Frederick Soltau, or Fred Soltau. We're working here, of course, on the preparations both of the conference in Rome, but then also in a more concerted way, all of us in DESA, of course, also on the July HLPF and then the SDG Summit in September. So I want to just use the time I have to cover those 3 points, say a few words on the status of preparations for the conference in May in Rome, a little bit about the July HLPF, and then something about the SDG Summit. So on the to start off on the Rome conference, we're very fortunate, and I think many of you on this call are working with us, have worked with us, have contributed ideas, have helped us shape the program, and that has shaped up pretty well. The updated program is online. We've really been working hardest on these sort of substantive or parallel working sessions, and we've worked with partners to get speakers to frame those sessions. So I think that's proceeded very well. Where we are now is to sort of reflect, look back, and make sure we have the balance across those 6 sessions, which in some sense are sort of the substantive heart of the conference, which will be bookended by a high-level opening, as would be customary for meetings of this nature, to signal commitment from UN system participants, but also from member states and others, and then to give a signal or sort of the sort of send-off message at the end of the second day, with the third day of the conference being focused more on capacity development and knowledge sharing. So we're trying to package the main messages to go to the HLPF on the end of that second day, and then to continue on the third day with room for sharing and for tools. So we really also satisfy some of the capacity development element, and also give our partners a chance to share the approaches and work they've done, because the interest in the conference is quite interesting. We have about 300 people that have pre-registered. So if we take every person that's registered, we are more or less at capacity. We'll have to work to make sure we can accommodate everyone that is genuinely interested and needs to be there, and work with funding to bring participants whom we need to hear from, especially from developing countries. But I would say the interest is overwhelming, both in terms of the numbers, but also in terms of the different communities that are represented among the participants. So I think we're off on a good track. We just have to manage and find space, ensure that the conference does justice to the thematic review element. The mandate of the conference being, of course, to provide a solid thematic review covering the targets under SDG 16, but of course also the broader SDG 16 plus dimension. So that's the challenge, but I think we're well on track. Of course, time is moving fast, So we will be, as a next step, be going back to some of our organizing partners to work and iron out the structure of those working sessions. And I would say on high-level participants, if through this network and your links with other networks know of high-level participation, do send those to us. We have some names coming in, but that we can fill those slots and make sure we have the right profile in the meeting. That's balanced, but that brings the various communities to the fore, also in these sort of high-level round tables. I think I will leave it there at this point in time for the Rome conference. Then, of course, this is in a sense the thematic preparatory work for the July HLPF. And at the July HLPF, the thematic session on SDG 16 will take place on Friday, July 12th, so 12th July from 3 to 6 p.m. That's the slot in the draft program. So in a sense, the sort of interim culmination of our work will be in July, and then of course heading, as David indicated, on to the SDG Summit in September. Also around the July HLPF, just as many of you probably will know, a very large number of voluntary national reviews. Some 50 countries will be presenting, 41 of which will be carrying out their second voluntary national review. So that's also an element, and I know that partners in this network and others have been working on encouraging countries, and we hope that this will be the case, to have strong sections or discussion consideration of SDG 16 in their voluntary national review reports. So that to say about the HLPF in July. Then moving on to the GA HLPF under the auspices of the General Assembly, the SDG Summit from 24 to 25 September. At present, as you probably know, the co-facilitators, Bahamas and Sweden, are consulting with regional groups and member states to take soundings on the preparation of the political declaration that David alluded to. And here, as also mentioned, the environment obviously is quite challenging, but a few messages are emerging. Member states, it appears, don't want to, of course, reopen the agenda. There's an interest in having a focused and concise document. But at this point in time, it's really the initial stages with the co-facilitators sounding out the views of member states and potentially moving to have a meeting with member states to hear their views in an informal setting in early May. So that, we understand, is the planning, to have sort of first gathering of member states for the co-facilitators to hear the views of member states, and then begin to develop or craft the process for the declaration. Now, one input, the only mandated input to this HLPF from the Secretariat side, sort of formally mandated, is of course the SDG Progress Report. But for the GA level, for the SDG Summit, the Global Sustainable Development Report will be a major input, and that report will be released in draft form on 13 May. So 13 May is the date for the release of that report. But on this Friday, the scientists will hold a briefing on the direction or the sort of where the report is going. So 12th April in conference room 6 at 1 p.m. The scientists will be briefing member states, hold an open briefing on the development of this report, sort of maybe perhaps foreshadowing what is to come in the report, which is being awaited with some expectation. And in terms of the organizational aspects of the SDG Summit, it's also thought that perhaps some of the themes from the report may help structure the dialogues or the roundtables or the format of the meeting. And again, the permanent representative of El Salvador has been charged with organizing or coming up with the modalities, reporting back to the PGA on the modalities of the SDG Summit. And here the challenge is that over the 2 days, 24 to 25, there are 9 hours available only to cover to accommodate the head of state and government level summit. So that's a bit of a challenge, but he's undertaking the soundings and gather the views of member states on how best to organize that. And it appears it probably will be in the direction of sort of leaders' dialogues, finding a format that suitably accommodates all the interested leaders, and then also finding The question that is still open would be also the participation from the UN side and perhaps from civil society as well. But the PR El Salvador is undertaking those consultations. And also a last point I want to mention there, and I think this is also an issue that has been considered by Pathfinders and others, is capturing commitments. So the plan is in DESA to have what we sort of in an interim fashion terming acceleration commitments that can be captured by interested parties, whether member states or partnerships or UN system or other persons on commitments towards the summit. So that is an idea that we're developing, and the technology to capture that is also being developed. So that idea is out there, and there'll be more details about that. But certainly to try and capture some of the buzz and also some of the commitments as we head to the summit, that idea is out there. We are finding a way to do that. I think with that I will leave it there, and then happy to take any questions during the Q&A.
Thank you, Fred. I think that was really useful, and I'm sure that in the Q&A there will be some questions directed to you about the process. And you know what strikes me about your conversation is how little time in the official process we have. And so in a way, that's why there are some events that will complement the official aspects. And I'm sure that with the 4 presenters that will offer some the events that they will be hosting, I'm sure that other people in the call are also planning many of the events. And the idea is, how do we create a common thread that will link all of us with a common narrative in which we can create a greater impact in the international community by having common messages and a common narrative emerging. So hopefully with this call, we will be able to have that type of harmonious thread across all the events we host. So with that, David from Pathfinders will provide some updates.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. I will try and be brief, as I know I've already spoken once, and we want to have as much time for questions as possible. But just a quick update on how things look from the point of view of the Pathfinders for Peaceful, Just, Inclusive Societies. For any of you who don't know us, we're a platform that really is very focused on accelerating implementation. That's our primary focus. How can we try and turn these incredibly ambitious targets into something that can be implemented, and how can we accelerate those processes? We have a group of roughly 40 member states, international organizations, global partnerships, civil society networks working on that problem. We working with the Global Alliance and the 16+ Forum, the three kind of umbrella initiatives for SDG 16+. We sent out a survey a couple of months ago, and we sent around the results for that. And I won't go into detail because you have the mini report from that, but it demonstrates a great desire for collaboration. It maps where the energies are, and I think it begins to provide the basis for what Jimena was saying of how we begin to sketch out a golden thread that can pull everything together. Our big focus in Rome, I mean, we're involved in a number of the sessions, but we're really focused very much on the plenary on the second day, which is going to try and synthesize where we are on the implementation and begin to identify these opportunities for acceleration. We had a conversation with DESA some time ago, and Marion at DESA was talking about, where are the where have we seen progress, where are we seeing obstacles, and where are the biggest opportunities to accelerate implementation? Where can we make the acceleration commitments that we've just heard Fred talk about? So we'll use that session to start mapping that out, and we really want to try and draw on the community as much as possible to do that. Here in New York, I think we have some political difficulties, but we have some real assets. And one of those is a very energized network of PRs who care deeply about SDG 16 plus. They include the PGA, the President of the General Assembly, the President of ECOSOC, and a growing number of countries who really want to make a success of these. these issues. They came together for a breakfast a couple of days ago. And Argentina is leading a process to bring together a joint statement on SDG16 plus, and I hope that there will be an initial version of that in Rome, and then we can see a growing number of countries and other partners sign on to that statement, and it will provide some sense of where the collective mood and ambition and direction of the field is. We also have quite a lot of thematic work ongoing at the moment. I'm not going to go into all of it because it would take too long, but I will mention the work on justice. There's a task force on justice led by ministers from Netherlands, Argentina, Sierra Leone, and by the elders. And they are just finalizing their report on a new approach to people-centered justice to try and solve roughly 1.5 billion unmet justice problems around the world. And we have a series of events and a big communication mobilization over the next 6 months around that. So if you're interested in that, please get in touch with us, my colleague Micah, who leads on that. On the HLPF, I think what Ambassador King, the president of ECOSOC, wants is a real sense of coherence. So we think that we need to turn this into a festival of SDG16 plus. Many flowers can bloom, but we should find a way of building a narrative around them and building a program around that. And then finally, on the SDG Summit, I think we need to start working now to make sure that we have our political leaders and champions in place to make the most of that summit. It's an insanely crowded week. It's a week with a climate summit, with an SDG summit, and with a number of other high-level events, as well as with the general debate. So we need to work together now to get the right champions, to get leaders from countries to sign up quickly and early to be part of a thematic panel where they can talk about issues around peace, justice, and inclusion. And we need a joint strategy to cut through the noise and make sure people hear our voices. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, David. Next is Nick Astaire from the SDG16 Plus Forum. Nick, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Jimena. Hello, everyone. As Jimena kindly just said, my name is Nicholas or Nick Astaire, and I work with Margaret Williams and Boningo Mohammadi at the World Federation of UN Associations here in New York, as well as the 16 Plus Forum. Due to pre-scheduled meetings, neither Margaret nor Bonian could be on the call this morning, so I will be speaking on behalf of the 16 Plus Forum today. As we have all just heard and know very, very well, there's been quite a bit of collective work and effort to capitalize upon the opportunity of HLPF this summer in July to take stock of the progress that has been made so far vis-a-vis SDG16 Plus implementation and identify what needs to be done moving forward in order to maintain this momentum. Of course, as we've said previously, with the SDG Summit then around the corner in September. Within this context, we have been asked to quickly brief on an SDG16 Plus umbrella event that the 16 Plus Forum aims to hold over HLPF in partnership with the Pathfinders Global Alliance, the co-chairs of the HLPF Planning Group, the TAP Network, and our various multi-stakeholder constituencies and communities, which include civil society, the UN, and the private sector, all working for the advancement of SDG16 Plus this year in 2019, as well as beyond. So just within our initiatives alone, including those within the G7 Plus as well, we've got 40 member states within our initiatives. So the aim of the event will be to draw attention to the universal, catalytic, and sustainable impact of SDG16 Plus and mobilize political will, commitment, and action at all levels, while celebrating successes achieved to date, including with young people as agents of change. The event will also highlight two of the 2030 Agenda's universal principles, namely leave no one behind and universality, as all countries throughout the world have room to improve with regards to peace, justice, and/or inclusion, which makes this event directly relevant for all stakeholders. Crucially, we'll also highlight links with the other SDGs under review this year, which, as you all know, are SDGs 4, 8, 10, and 13. We've identified three overarching objectives for this event. The first is to underscore the importance of SDG 16 Plus as an enabler of the overall 2030 agenda. The second is to celebrate progress on SDG 16 Plus and showcase experiences of SDG 16 Plus in action, including as highlighted through the VNRs. And the third is to galvanize political will and multi-stakeholder commitments to accelerate SDG16 plus implementation in the next 4-year cycle of the 2030 agenda. The event and the related concept note are the result of a series of meetings, consultations, and surveys, one which was just mentioned by Mr. David Stephen, and one which will be mentioned shortly by Mr. John Romano. Very, very quickly, I know that I'm out of time, but just want to say that the event will most likely take place on July 16th from 6:15 to 7:30 in the UN Trusteeship Council, and the tentative format is as follows. Opening remarks will be delivered by a keynote speaker before transitioning to an interactive. That's it, sorry.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Nick. Now we will turn to Lucy from the Global Alliance. Lucy, you have the floor.
Thanks, Jimena, and thanks, colleagues. It's great to be part of this community that's becoming ever more energized. So I want to pick up on a few threads. You know, I think Nick named it really. He's saying, what needs to be done going forward? How do we celebrate success and look to the future and have a harmonious multitude of voices that has coherent messages about what it actually looks like to establish SDG 16 as the foundation for achievement of the 2030 agenda going forward. So obviously the high-level political forum is an ideal place to do that. The purpose of the follow-up and review mechanism of the 2030 agenda, so the voluntary national review reports that are prepared at national level and the high-level political forum at which they are presented, is for national experience to inform global policy and action. So one of the ways that we thought as the Global Alliance we could support that process and support everyone who's gathered in New York in July and September to do that is to provide concrete information and inspiration about what is working, what is leading to concrete demonstrable changes in lives and institutions globally. Through a report that really demonstrates what SDG 16 plus looks like in action and what concrete actions, investments are leading to demonstrable change. So the report, which we now have a draft and we'll be sharing with you very shortly, is designed to complement the UN's UN mandated reports like the Secretary General's annual report on the SDGs and the quadrennial Global Sustainable Development Report. It's distinctive because it focuses on SDG 16 in particular. It reflects country-level experiences, and it's also about collating the perspectives of the individuals who are actively promoting SDG 16 on the ground, who are at the rock face, so to speak, of creating this measurable change. The original framing we thought of was stories and statistics. How do we bring SDG 16 plus to life for people who are not in this space? So for that purpose also we hired a writer who has a journalistic capacity and is able to bring these stories to life for people. Now, the process to get to that report is involved 3 main streams. One of them is just pulling together what exists. So far 112 VNR reports, more than half of which at this point do report on SDG 16. Documents like, as David mentioned, the Justice Task Force report, the outcome document of the 16 Plus Forum showcase meeting, which actually Nick drafted and is excellent. The other main stream is technical consultations on each of the 3 elements within SDG 16, peace, justice and inclusion, which took place at regional level to enable experts who are active on these issues to give us their views on what is the state of the art of SDG 16 and what's needed now to move the agenda forward. So again, enabling these discussions that take place to prepare the political declaration at the HLPF to be based on current information about what's working and what's needed to move SDG 16 forward. And then finally, we have country case studies. We sent out a global call for any country that wanted to showcase its successes to prepare a national country case study. And these are prepared with the support of UN country teams. The key messages show that investment in SDG 16 plus is happening. It's increasing. Countries are focusing on this more, and crucially, they're investing in the metrics necessary to measure change. SDG 16 is triggering new partnerships, and that interlinkages, especially on the institutional side, are moving forward. So yes, happy to share more in the Q&A about next steps.
Thank you, Lucy. And I'm sorry, guys, that I'm having to put you in a very tight schedule, but it's because we want to allow a Q&A as well. I know more questions are going to come up, and we're excited to receive the report as well. Lucy, when is it going to be published, or is it already out?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, we have the draft. It's currently under peer review by the Secretariat members of the Global Alliance. We'll be going to the steering committee this week, and then out for broader review. Information will be shared at the EGM, but a crucial opportunity for this group to help to identify the key messages around which we can cohere, to have a coherent campaign, will be in June, an event hosted by Norway. We can, as a community, help to select the messages that we can gather around in July and September.
Great, thank you so much. Next, we turn to Jordan Street and John Romano, representing Voices of SDG 16 Plus, a coalition of a group from Safer World, TAP, GPAC, Peace Direct, NAMATI, CS, PPS, and IPI. Jordan or John, who's going first?
Yeah, hi, thanks, Amanda. This is John Street from SafeRod. Just really quickly, I just want to provide a little bit of background on the campaign initiative, let you know how you could get involved, and then John will just add a few more details about what we're going to be doing in July and moving forward. So SafeWorld, TAP Network, and IPI have been thinking for a while about how best to make sure that we can showcase local, national, and global civil society efforts to implement SDG 16 Plus during the HLPF. We felt that there wasn't often enough space to see, what's working in our SDG 16 Plus implementation, the diversity of things happening, and, the very local work that often is missed out in the very short slots we have for voluntary national reviews. We wanted something that allows us to show some innovative, some entrepreneurial efforts that gives us a little bit more space, but also treats the work of NGOs and INGOs the same as it does for kind of youth or women-led community groups and movements, to really showcase the tapestry of work that's happening around the world. So this has led to us forming the Voices of SDG 16 campaign, and as Jimena says, we now have some additional campaign partners, Peace Direct, GPAC, CSPPS, NAMATI, and others are shortly coming on board. This global campaign is asking for those who are implementing aspects of SDG 16 Plus to share what they're doing with the world via some short videos, upload them to a kind of a shared platform with a view to selected individuals sharing these efforts in person during the HLPF in July, and with others, videos that aren't able to join us being showcased around social media channels and in other events. We've already started receiving some videos, and hopefully we'll be able to review and release some of these in the coming days. But I do want to stress that this is an open campaign. We'd love further organizations to join. We want this to be collaborative, inclusive. We want this to be co-led by all involved. So if you are keen to learn more, please reach out to John, Jimena, or myself. I'm going to, in the interest of time, pass over to John, who's going to add a little bit more about what specifically we're doing in July, when we're doing it, and how to get involved.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Jordan, for that introduction. I think it's just a quick note to say that I think we're really excited. I think we started this about a month or so ago, and the groundswell of support that we've received from this, including from other potential partners, has been it's been really encouraging and really exciting. Jordan mentioned the campaign. We're looking to collect these videos and showcase them on a dedicated platform going forward in the lead up to the HLPF to build momentum towards the HLPF. But then we'll also be hosting a full day event on Thursday, the 11th of July. At the International Peace Institute, where we hope that'll be an opportunity to not just showcase these stories, but to also, Jordan mentioned that we will be bringing some of these storytellers to the HLPF And we know a lot of colleagues are bringing some of their counterparts from the national and local levels to the HLPF, which is really great. And so we think we hope this opportunity, this event will be an opportunity for us to not just showcase these events, but these videos and stories, but also have an interactive dialogue. And what we also hope finally is just to, not just build momentum towards the HLPF and capitalize on that momentum at the HLPF through this event. We hope that this platform is a continuous opportunity for us to sustain that momentum, which I think is just as important as building the momentum and capitalizing on it, is to sustain it. So we look forward to working with all of you and our future partners to kind of build and sustain that momentum around the civil society space going forward. So yeah, thanks. We'll share some more information going forward.
Thank you. Thank you, John. Thank you, Jordan. It's exciting to hear all these 4 initiatives, each working on an aspect of creating this movement towards SDG 16 plus on boosting it and on creating that space for that goal that is so important for the entirety of the 2030 agenda. So thank you all. We're now moving to the Q&A session. We have about 20 minutes, 18 minutes. And so does anyone, let's test it out, because does anyone have a comment and a question? Please take 2 minutes. After the 2 minutes, I'm going to do the same thing I did with my fellow presenters so that we have time. Thank you. Who would like to take the floor first? And colleagues, I think that if you have questions, there's a way to reach out to, like, put your hand up in the browser, or Borjan, can you help us out? I know that there's 114 participants, so there must be questions and comments.
Yes. Hi, everyone. This is Boyan from CIC. I was in the background, and I see some of you are raising your hands. We have Christina Kulas, I believe, from Global Compact, and you should be able to speak. Christina, can you hear us? And after Christina, we're going to have Alexandra Hineker from the Mayor's Office.
Great.
Who also has a question.
Great. Christina, you have the floor.
So to those who have raised their hands to ask the question, once I confirm you as a presenter, you need to confirm on your side that you can speak. Now we have Alexandra Hineker, and I'm going to unmute you. Alexandra?
Alex, come in.
Hi, everybody. Thank you
Hi.
so much for convening this. It's great to hear all of the different streamworks coming together. I, of course, am curious to hear how you're concretely engaging with local authorities and what those mechanisms may be. I'm with the New York City Mayor's Office for International Affairs, and I run our program that links our local strategies to the global goals. And also just to flag that I'm super interested throughout the year and also during the HLPF to show in practical terms what this means in New York, to arrange site visits if we have all these practitioners to meet with our colleagues in New York City who are addressing these issues.
Great, Alex, and I know you guys are doing excellent work. We'll take a few questions and comments, and then I'll give it back to the speakers. Christina from Global Compact.
It seems as though, this is Boyan speaking, we're still struggling to get in touch with Christina. So if anyone else has questions.
While Christina is coming on, we've got a written question that's just come through from Sophia Fernandez from the Westminster Foundation for Democracy, who say that they're going to be hosting a side event on SDG 16, on Parliaments in 16.6 and 16.7. And the question really is, I think it's directed at Fred, but how can side events feed back into the formal process in the second week of the HLPF, and how can they influence what happens at the SDG Summit? And then she also asks about whether there are any other side events that people know about that are related to Parliament.
Great.
We have some questions that are streaming in on the chat.
Right.
It
says, Gay, wonderful to hear all the activities, how to make sure that we don't work across purposes, different organizations approaching the same member states for partnership or sponsorship events, to reserve rooms or exhibition space. So Gay's question is, how can we make sure that we don't work across purposes? Then Miranda, coming from Mercy Corps, questions to DESA. Should we have heard already if our application to attend Rome was successful? Matthew Scott from World Vision says, I have the same question as Gay. David mentioned that July HLPF will be a festival of flowers, but how do we ensure it's not a jungle of weeds? Great. Christina, hi, from the 4TD network. Hi, thank you for the organizers for the, okay, that's not a question, sorry. So these are wonderful questions. Let's go back to our presenters to address Alex's questions, Sophia's, Gay's, and World Vision and Scott's. David, do you want to go first, and then we go to Fred, and then to Jordan and John?
I think I should go last because I've spoken a lot, but let Fred.
Okay.
I think many of them are directed at him.
Great, great. Fred?
Thank you, Jimena, and thank you, colleagues. So the question, I think, from the Westminster Foundation about the side events, very happy that you're applying. It's always very quite difficult to get a side event slot because of the large interest and the constraints on rooms. So, but I think very good to have the parliamentary dimension represented, parliamentary accountability through parliaments, oversight by parliaments, that comes through. How to influence the HLPF? I think David's words, you know, many flowers. I heard someone describe the HLPF as being sort of a general assembly for sustainable development. So it's become really, especially covering now not just the economic and social, but also the elements under SDG 16, such a broad spectrum of issues. It's really, you know, it's like I think it builds out the influence. At the core is the intergovernmental part, and I think the president wants to strengthen that again to make sure that it does have a deliberative function. But around that is this networking, this energizing, and the sort of stepping stone, in this case, going to September, the July HLPF as a stepping stone to pathway to September. So I think that's how I would put it. You know, the influence is perhaps diffuse, but the side events are a very important part of the HLPF as a whole. So that really it builds and brings in the networks and those who can't fully participate in the limited time that is in the main sessions of the HLPF. On the question, I think from Mercy Corps, from Miranda, the applications, yes. So we're sifting through those. We're working with our partner, with IDLO, and I actually neglected to do this, and I apologize. If there's a moment to give Patrizio Cefili, if he's online, just a word. We're working with our partners to sort of sift through the applications and make sure we can bring representatives from most, if not all, of our applicants, given that we have some constraints. But in a word, we will be getting back to all the applicants shortly to let them know what the status of their registration is. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Would anyone else from the speakers would like to address some of the other questions that were addressed? How do we make sure that the HLPF is not, it's the blooming of the flowers instead of the jungle of weeds, for example, or the local authorities question? Lucy.
Yeah, thanks. It's such a good point. You know, one of the reasons why we have, you know, in fact, Gay's question coming, how do we discipline ourselves and enable events to happen given that there is such a limit now? And there's a good reason for that. I mean, back, I think it was in 2017, there were more than 500 applications for side events, and you could almost forget that the VNR presentations were even happening because everyone was either organising an event or running to an event. So I would say the key is, yes, to let 1,000 flowers bloom, but allow the branch to be the formal process. So the VNRs being prepared now, and the presentation of them at the HLPF. In the events which many of us are organising, can we ensure that the positive examples of progress that we're showcasing are examples that are also coming through the VNR? Because then we're also rewarding and encouraging quality reporting, which is the means by which civil society, national academia, private sector, and diverse government institutions have a voice at national level in influencing global debates. But we're also cohering around a formal, well-established process that is a means to put inclusion into action in that way. So I would say that. And the other thing, Gay, I would say in terms of practical strategies to avoid, chaos, really, is we have produced a calendar which is to help really promote that kind of coherence. It shows what people are doing. We just invited people to contribute to it. So we now have quite a large amount. Possibly what we can do now to add to that list is list out who are the member state co-sponsors. So that can help other actors to inform their approaches to member states. And we could try to work with DESA on that.
Great. Great, thank you so much. As we speak, there's other questions coming along. Global Compact is asking, how can we advance the role of business during the Rome meeting, and I assume also during the HLPF? And then there's other suggestions about how could we create a joint list of all the events happening during the HLPF on SDG 16 plus, so that at least we know of each other's events in advance, and perhaps that would reduce some of the overlap.
I'd like to give floor.
John Roman. Oh, sorry. John, and then Bojan.
Yeah, thanks, Jimena. Just very quickly, just on the coordination side of things. I mean, I think I mentioned there's a lot that's going on, particularly from the civil society perspective. And so just a quick note to say that us as the TAP network, we do this every year on the HLPF, but we look to coordinate civil society around the HLPF. There's a lot that's going on around various approaches to SDG 16, like spotlight reporting or engaging and mobilizing commitments for acceleration, like Fred and David mentioned, or on engaging the VNRs or data. And so we'll continue to do that. So for those that aren't engaged with TAP already, you can join the network. But then also to say that the Voices of SDG 16 Plus campaign that we have with IPI and Safer World, as Jordan mentioned, we want this to be an inclusive event. We want colleagues that can actually bring colleagues from the national level and bring some of those storytellers to the HLPF. We're really looking to expand our partnership and be as inclusive as possible. And I think the video platform does that in a lot of ways. But the event itself, I hope, will be an opportunity, especially for civil society, to come together, take stock of some of the stories that we're getting, and then see where do we go from here collectively. I think it's a key opportunity for us to, again, capitalize on the momentum and then see where we go from here and sustain that momentum. So there's a lot that's happening.
Excellent. That's exciting. Thank you. Bojan, did you?
Yeah, actually, we have a question from Christina Diaz, and she's on the line. I'm going to give her a floor in just a second. Christina?
Okay. Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so thank you so much for organizing this call, and also thank you so much for all the initiatives that you are taking. It really is important to show that as civil society, we care about goal 16 plus, and we are committed to see it come through. So I really appreciate all the things that you have presented. I have, but listening to all what you are saying, in the back of my head, I also have this question that we have a role to show how much we care and what we are doing, but we also have a role to say when governments are not doing enough, and when people that should be benefiting and should be, whose lives should be changing, and are expecting goal 16 as one of the most important goals to be implemented, we have a role also to show it and to say it out loud at the HLPF. And my question is, are there spaces in these reports that you are mentioning, in the events, in the things that you are organizing, for civil society also to be critical of what is happening, and to point out sometimes we are going backwards, and so I don't think it is positive in some places to give the feeling that everything is okay and those wonderful people are doing so many things. Thank you.
Christina, this is a wonderful question. I think it's really important to provide that critical space, because at the UN we're only used to providing really great, salutations and bravo and applause, but we also need those spaces to be a little bit more critical. So thank you. Who would like to take that question? John, again, go for it, very quickly.
Yeah, sorry, and I heard Jordan also maybe want to come, so I'll be very brief. I mean, I think it's a really important point, Christina, and obviously, as you know, I mean, TAP, one of the principles of TAP is accountability. Just a quick note to say that we've booked a lot of venue spaces throughout the entire 2 weeks of the HLPF, and so what we'll be looking to do, in addition to this official side event spaces, we're looking to provide that space for some of our members in case they don't get side events approved. We're also having a separate process to kind of lend that space to colleagues. And we do hope that, especially colleagues that from civil society at the national level that produce spotlight reports or shadow reports on SDG 16 or other issues, that we can use that side event space that we've booked through TAP to showcase some of those colleagues from the national and local levels, to showcase their own pictures of progress. But maybe, I don't know if Jordan has anything to add on this.
Just to add, I mean, Christina, I think the sentiments that you raised have come up quite a lot with a number of people that SafeWorld have been speaking to about joining the Voices of SDG 16 Plus partnership. And I think the balance that we're trying to find is a way of showcasing the really great work that we know our partners all around the world are doing, with being able to reflect on what the challenges are, what the gaps, and what we need to be scaled up, what we need to be supported, and what that's happening around the world in certain contexts that is actually working against building peaceful, just, and inclusive societies. And we need to balance those things. And so that's one of the reasons why we want our campaign to be inclusive. We want other people to join and to help us shape the events that we try and put on during that day on July the 11th, to really reflect those different concerns and of our constituents and communities we work with.
Great. I know that time is running short, so I will give the floor to David to wrap up, but we will also be reflecting on the questions and the suggestions that were made during the call, and that perhaps we didn't have enough time to address them. So thank you all for your time. David, you have the floor.
Great, thank you. And thank you very much. And I'm sorry we had a few technical difficulties getting people to talk. I particularly wanted to recognize IDLO, who are co-hosting the conference in Rome. And I think it's a splendid opportunity to work closely with them. And I know that they've been trying to get in, but haven't been able to. So we'll follow up with them and then circulate any information that they have after this call. They've also been a really important partner on the mobilization around justice. So it's going to be great to be in their home city. I won't say too much more, because I think a lot of it has been said. I think this really has to be the beginning of us working more closely together. I think Rome is obviously the next opportunity to rally as a community. There are formal events, well, lots of formal sessions, but as we know, a lot of the action happens in the margins. So we should really maybe try and get a little informal session in a break or in the early evening, have a drink and start to plot and plan how we can make this a success. I think I don't know. We maybe didn't hear everything back from Fred, but I think the one thing that I want to come back to, which I think is the single most important thing that's been said on this call, is the fact that there will be a call from the UN, I hope from the SG and from the PGA for accelerator commitments, and that there will be some kind of platform, some kind of registry to record those commitments. That I imagine will be launched in September, and that gives us a focus for driving towards the future. It provides a way of all sorts of partners who have a commitment making process or who can solicit commitments to work together. I know one example, Namati and TAP have already been reaching out to civil society organizations saying, what can civil society commit to do in the next 4 years? The Dutch have been reaching out to ministers of justice and saying, where can we do more on justice? And I think we saw from Oceans, when the Oceans conference prepared a real sense of acceleration. They had good advocacy around plastics, but they had a strong acceleration and a sense of increased national commitments that really put the Oceans SDG on the map. So I would hope that we can start now. Show you my clock one more time. It is ticking down. Think about the 166 days to September, and let's work together to make it a success. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. And I really do turn to the question of how, let's keep with the image of all of us working towards the blooming of the 1,000 flowers instead of the jungle of weeds, because it really is up to us to either create the jungle or the garden. We all have that responsibility, right? So let's try to do all our best to shift to the garden. All right. So thank you so much for joining us, and stay tuned. Bye.
Thank you.